Greetings. What's up? I'm your boy Mel. I want to keep this short and simple, but something I think is interesting to look at, which also lets us kind of go through the whole process, is TXRH. So I want to look at kind of each part of this flow and tell you why we're bullish on it. So the first thing to know is that when you hear TXRH, my first thought was like, oh, this is some crazy biotech play. Or some weird, oh yeah, I got this little, if I press the control button, it gets circle click. I'm going to be doing that a lot. It's cool. So it actually is Texas Roadhouse, which I'd never even heard of, but apparently it's some restaurant. Apparently we have them out here in California. God knows I've never heard of it, but there we are. So that's what it is. A weird diner kind of place. So I'm going to take you through the process of what it is I do when I'm looking at these for high confidence plays. Again, disclaimer, flow is very wonky in this market, right? When the calls are pumping, or when SPY's pumping and QQQ's pumping, calls go well. If it's not, then the flow is trash. So what I've been doing is playing them closer to in the money, so I can kind of weather any storm. And also I've been analyzing SPY and QQQ a lot more lately, so that helps. So I have these 4 windows open usually when I'm analyzing flow. I use 2 monitors. You don't have to. Like sometimes also just sit on my laptop. So don't think it's like you need to have a crazy setup. You really just don't. I usually just play ESPN on the second screen, to be honest. All right, so the first one is I have my hot chains up. You can see here. Got my intraday analyst up. You can see there. And I got my flow. I got my historical flow. What you see right there, I got it bookmarked. And then the final thing I have is UW flow bookmarked. The reason why you'll see that I have those is because it gives you the natural progression of what you're looking for. So when I see a high volume contract, sorry, when I'm scanning flow and I see a high volume contract come through, first thing I want to do is check the hot chains to get a sense of it. When I'm looking at the hot chains here, you can search any ticker. People use hot chains like they think that you only can play things that are in the top hot chains, and that's just not true. If you're interested in a ticker, searching on hot chains, it'll tell you what's going on with it, if there is stuff going on. So here I see TXRH in the hot chains. I see the 100 call, 819, when the stock is trading at 94. So, I mean, that's curious, right? That's significantly outside the money. And then the next thing that I see is it was a 98% bullish contract and premium 25K. I'll show you why that premium, even though it's low, is interesting in a minute. So the next thing I do when I see what I like on hot chains is I'm going to go over to intraday analyst and look for a couple things. What I'm mostly going to look for is the COPE. That's this new tool that shows you what's happening with the stock. What you want to see is large spikes, but also sustained spikes. If you see large sells, like right here, then you know that a large position might have been closed. It does not differentiate between sold calls, sold puts, bought calls, bought puts. So for example, this bearish order could very well just be someone who's made money on their calls and is closing those calls, so they'll show up as bearish. Here it could technically be someone closing puts, and it shows up as bullish. But generally you look at it to see what? Large orders. So here we see someone made a large bullish order. Sorry, that blue line's annoying. Here we see like a large bullish order, large bearish order, relatively large bullish order, and then the bullishness keeps climbing to close, right? What you want to look for sometimes, which is interesting, is a divergence in those. So here, for example, we're seeing large orders come through while the price of the stock is dropping. The blue is the price, orange is this. I don't know about gamma score. I don't know about flow ratio, so I'm not going to pretend to. I just use these two, and generally that's what most people use. Most people don't follow the other ones. So that's the thing I want to check. So I'm seeing some bullishness here on Thursday, like large climb of bullishness Thursday, outpacing the price. I'm seeing a sell here, which perks my ears up on Friday, and I'm going into the close. Remember, what we're looking at is the activity from Friday. This was bought 8:12, 12:58. I'll get to why that's important in a minute. So once I've looked at that on the intraday analyst page, then I'm going to go down and see just kind of what the options volume was like. So here we have a little bearish volume on Friday, right? A little tiny bearish volume. But then look here. we get these big spikes at the end of the day. Now I'm noting the time on this, right? I love seeing decisions being made at the end of the day. That's insanely bullish, especially the end of the day on a Friday. Like, I love that because it's showing some urgency. So now what we got? We got stock showing 98% bullish volume, deep outside the money. It's shown large whale orders on COPE on Thursday that were inverting the price action. And now we see large bullishness toward the end of the day on Friday. Here, I just kind of pop by and take a look. So as we could see, it was the most active chain, was the one that we were watching, which is why it was on, which is why it was on hot chains. Looking down at some of the other ones, we see that a lot of 95 puts were sold. We see 85 puts sold, and it's all bullish, which means that basically, I'm sorry, we see those puts on the hot chain, and we see that they're bullish, which means that the puts were sold. We don't know if sold to open, sold to close, blah, 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 but we know that they were sold. Here we do see a little bit of bearishness with the ADP right here for 916 and 120.23. Then we look at the 85 leap, we see bullishness. So you can kind of give these a little glance just to see what the general mood is. And right here I'm seeing bullishness with TXRH. Chains with the highest OI, so this is interesting. 85P819 is the highest volume. So the reason why I'm showing you this, or highest OI, the reason why I'm showing you this is because I don't want you to start getting biased opinions of what's happening. The chains with the highest OI are mixed. Like, let's not mince words about it. But the active chains were bullish. So now you're kind of getting a full picture of what's happening, like, recently. No biggest option trades have been found. There's usually a certain filter that they have to cross for that, and it hasn't. Historical flow for TXRH. This is really interesting, too. First, you can see the call versus put premium, right? So I'm looking at the call versus put premium spent. That is the amount of money spent on calls versus puts. It's not going to let me make it any smaller, is it? There we go. So we see that cross here happen. What day is that? We see that cross happen on the 10th. So that was like Monday or so. And then we see the bullish premium rising, outpacing the put premium. And then here we kind of get a more full view of COPE. Now look, it stayed flat, bearish something or other. And then we see bullishness rising. And then we see that order on Friday, but we do see the rising bullishness. Now, this is what really interested me about this one. The put-call ratio was 257, 1425, 1.17. And then that ratio lowers. This is the amount of puts held to the amount of calls held for that day. From 14.25 to 1.17 to 0.33 to 0.25. This put ratio is drastically dropping, right? Spikes up here and then drops. That's a humongous drop in the amount of puts that are open. And then we can just go, if we're doing our full due diligence, look at the contract we saw. So look, on Thursday, there's nothing going on with this. Then all of a sudden on Friday, volume jumps like that. The contract was anemic, and then all of a sudden it's out of this world. That's something that's really, really something to pay attention to. And then you can see the historical volume OI change. It's just another way to look at what we're just looking at, right? And so then, if we look at the flow overall for TXRH, let's actually reset this, just so we can be sure that we're not getting a bug or anything like that. TXRH. All right, now look what we got. We see, we're going to make our results per page 250 so that we can see everything. That's key. When you keep it on like 50, you don't know what's going on. So we're going to look through that day. Now look, here's what's interesting. TXRH only had about 275 orders for the day. Look, someone opened a sold put in the morning for the 90. That's interesting. Yeah, sold open. And then here we see more sells at size greater than open interest. I actually need to take a note of that for someone in my Discord. So I'm going to go ahead and put this on my clipboard. Okay. So what we see here is continued bullishness. We got a little bug here. We see continued bullishness. We see a stock that doesn't have that many options trades per day, right? Like 275 or whatever it had is extremely low for any ticker. So the reason why that's important is because if we go back here, You might be thinking, well, 25,000 is not a lot to spend on a stock that's not actionable, but I would argue that it is if the stock usually trades fairly anemic, right? And then here we see all those 100 calls streaming through. Look at that. Selling puts, buying calls, selling puts, buying calls. And that's in addition to the 25K puts that we saw so earlier. So this all kind of wrapped together. Apparently, Texas Roadhouse might have something going on, but obviously we also want to check the chart. So let's go. I'm always trading SPY. Let's go to TXRH. Now, this is where things get interesting, and here's why. TXRH has been on a tear, right? Look at that. It has like, I think if you go to the weekly, it's like 5 candles with no pullback. Look at that. It's been going berserk every week. So that is what makes this flow play more interesting, because if I'm looking at the weekly and I'm seeing these candles, would we not expect to see that this put to call ratio would have been following that action the whole time? It has not been. It's been extremely high during those time periods. Look at that. Even when it's been going out of control, it's at these huge spikes. So what that says to me is that this 100C, which isn't insanely outside the money, but it's far outside the money, is not someone just chasing the call action that generally they do, because no one's really chased this call action like this before. So something might be brewing with Texas Roadhouse. What it is, I do not have a thesis. I got to find one because I don't even really, I've never been. To me, this is like if someone was going all in on Chili's. Like, I don't get it, but I fucks with it. So yeah, Texas Roadhouse, interesting flow. Again, search it on hot chains when you see it come across your screen. Go to Intraday Analyst, look at the COPE, to look at where in the day the options volume was happening. Check to see what the volume looks like overall. If it's bullish, it is. Check to see what the highest chain OIs are. They are. Go to the historical flow. Look at the call to put premium. Check out the COPE. Look at the put to call ratio. Out here with a straw, and I need a spoon. This is thick. And you got the volume open interest on the historical chain. You checked it out. This is definitely unusual for this chain. This confirms it. Got your chart. Confirms that what we're seeing is weird. And let's hope these print. I feel pretty good about this, actually. All right, cool. That's it. Later.